Hi, welcome to an episode of the library. My name is Bethany. I'm so glad you're here. It's been a while, and one of the reasons for that is because in my area of the country, we have had a lot of bad weather, a lot of unusually cold weather. And so I've been dealing with snow days and just at some point being iced in. And there was some moments where it was a little stressful, but I am glad to be back with you today. I'm going to talk about a really serious subject today. Um, and mostly it's because I saw a video posted by an author and I wanted to add my opinion to the conversation. And so I thought, well, what better place to do it than on my YouTube channel? So let's get started. Let's jump in right away. I stumbled across author Lori Langdon's. She made a video about a conversation she had with her literary agent. Now, Lori Langdon is a young adult author. She has written numerous books, and one of the conversation she had with her literary agent was that this literary agent was at a festival or an event where agents can go to these events and market books to publishing companies or find out what publishing companies are looking for so that they know better how to market towards them in the future. Publishing works in the future, meaning like the books that they're looking to obtain this year wouldn't actually be published until 27, or I'm sorry, this is 2026. So the books they would publish in 2026 wouldn't be published till 2028 or even 2029. And that means that the books that are being published this year were most likely obtained and going through the publication process as far back as 2023 or 2024. So as you can see, it takes a few years once a book is obtained for it actually to hit the shelves of a bookstore. Okay, so I say all that to say that Lori Langdon's literary agent was told that one of the things that publishing companies are looking to market for young adult is more sexualization in books for young adults. Young adult is primarily like 13 to 17. And when we're talking about more sexualization, we're not talking about where like the characters, share like a little kiss or something like that. We're talking about like extremely graphic, intimate scenes that they want to put in these books. And Lori does not write those books. She writes story-driven, adventure-driven, non-graphic romance when it's appropriate in the terms of her story. And so essentially what these publishing companies are wanting to do is make it where it's more graphic romance driven in the story instead of just story driven. So there's this is very concerning. Not just as a parent that's concerning, but also like when we consider readers. When we think young adult, you want to think that only 13-year-olds to 17-year-olds are going to read young adult. But that's just not true. If you have a voracious reader who is 9 years old and they've already read all the books that would be considered age appropriate for them, they're going to continue to go and read more books. And some of those books will be young adult literature. So that means that if you put extremely graphic content, sexual content in a young adult novel, there is a very good probability that a 9-year-old will be exposed to things that they just should not be reading at 9. But to take that a step further, I'm not really sure that a 13-year-old should be reading that, or a 16-year-old should be reading that, or a 17-year-old should be reading that. Their brains aren't fully developed. Even if you have trigger warnings at the beginning of books, it doesn't mean that they have the emotional intelligence, the emotional maturity to say, this is not the book for me. And then to take that a step further, we're seeing studies come out, and I'm going to drop a website below of an organization that is trying to fight this, and they're providing like a database of like what science and scientists are saying, but essentially like the research is coming out that when an individual, we're talking about an adult, is reading smut, which is considered like highly sexual, very graphic content in books, that it actually rewires their brain. And so reality is never good enough. They are hungry for more. And in that hunger for more, it means that they are willing to accept potentially like violence and intimacy, which is very, very, very concerning, especially if you are like that's concerning enough for an adult. But then you're making that acceptance okay, and you're telling a child like this is the norm and this is what you should accept in a relationship. So instead of having an emotionally healthy relationship, um, you're opening up the opportunity through the books that they're reading that they could have a more volatile relationship. And so I just think that this trend is like very dangerous, and I think that it's very alarming. You know, if an adult wants to read these types of books, that's on them. They can do that. I just think that it should be very alarming that children, that's the push in publishing for children, especially when we have so many good story-driven books out there, with the opportunity to add to those story-driven, you know, like there's people have like there's still more stories that could be story-driven or adventure-driven, that are not solely focused on intimate graphic scenes, and then that's driving forth the story. You know, like behind me, there's a whole host of books here. I've been very intentional to build a library where it's good literature that are not that are adventure stories, or good literature where the plot is driving it and not so much just like the graphic sexualization, graphic intimacy. Because I want to introduce my children to books that are wholesome and beautiful and well written, and um, not pushing one aspect of story, like how graphic can we get. I just think that that's very alarming. And Lori shared that. Lori Langdon shared that in her video, that it was very alarming for her to find out that her agent was like, I don't know how we're going to market your books in the future, unless you start adding these scenes to your book. And she conveyed that she was very uncomfortable with that, as she should be. But even more uncomfortable, like parents should be very alarmed by this as well. Because we want to raise voracious readers who love good stories and write stories that make them think and make them look at the world better in a different way, with more empathy and compassion. And we want to introduce stories that make them wrestle, like, what would I do in this situation? Those are character driven. Those are adventure driven. Then, and there's an entertainment element to it that can be very engaging, but we don't want to introduce stories where it is so focused on the physical, intimate scenes that that's what's driving the story. There's so much more to a story. So I'm going to drop an Amazon link in the bottom. It is an affiliate link, but it's just really to give you an idea of some really good, wholesome stories that you can introduce your children to. I'm going to include some of Lori Langdon's books, because I think this is she's written some really fun books. I went through and read the descriptions of her books, and it looks really good. But I like that this is an author who's being very brave and standing up and saying, like, I write young adult literature, and I don't think that this type of content is appropriate in the genre of books that I write. So I'm going to include her links in there. She's also created like a petition you can go and sign, to let publishing companies know, like, this is not what we want for our children. It's a heavy day, but there's still hope. So keep reading.